There's spare water. Can you actually bring that too? I'm thirsty. I haven't eaten lunch today. I need to get out of here by 6:32 to go eat.
We have no bottle of no water.
All right, you guys are go for lunch.
Is that lunch or lunch?
Rob needs water.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Town Board Workshop meeting for April 26, 2021 to order. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Here.
Councilmember Stafford,
Here.
Councilmember Safranik. Here. Bless you. Councilmember Bolsner.
Here.
Supervisor Schultz.
Here. We'll begin tonight with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Letting her know
Don gonna join us today, or he
He's on
virtual?
here.
Online.
He's virtual?
he
Oh, I
was
miss him.
had a little bit of something, so he didn't want to risk bringing it to us.
Good, he sits close to
I
me.
see you, Mr. Barley. I'm looking at you.
I'm glad you stayed too close to me to be sick.
I'm watching you.
Okay. So this week we have two special use permits. It's for the same applicant. It's for Search Hill Brewing Company over in the former Wegmans, what's now where Beers of the World is. And so that's both for the
Heather, is this you? I just need this. I need some water.
wait, I'm confused.
I'm good.
Yeah, because that's what confused me too.
The way they had it written down.
Mhm. They're actually separate.
Okay, so Becky, I need some clarification. Are you there?
Sure, yeah, I'm here. It looks
So-
like we have a copy paste error on the agenda here. They
Okay.
aren't
thought.
constructing student housing. They're trying
Yeah.
to open a restaurant and have outdoor seating.
Right, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, it's, I missed that when I was reviewing it. So yeah, so one is for the restaurant.
Me
one is for
too.
seating. And then we have public hearings. We have the two local laws for the public hearings for the local laws. We called it our last meeting. So one is to limit parking on cul-de-sacs, and the other one is to limit the removal of planted, mature, and other valued vegetation in town parks. And yes, there was a theft, attempted theft again this week.
Wow.
Tim Oakes caught somebody trying to steal flowers, so
Wow. Amazes me.
I know.
don't know,
They must know that we don't have law and they can get away with it.
right?
Then they have till Wednesday to get,
Right.
are we?
Yeah, but I did like the way that it's been written.
Worded
so
instead
far.
of the pick the flowers?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
So we'll make sure that language, because somewhere on, we'll make sure that that is carried forth everywhere. I think it's been going forward, but we'll just make sure there's no cut and paste.
Right.
So for both 3 and 4, unless something major comes up during the public hearing, my thought is that we would adopt the resolutions.
Okay.
Mhm.
Don, do we need any type of short seeker form or any statement to that effect?
You know what? It probably would be good to neg deck them, but I will. I'll double check. If we need that, I'll add that to the backup for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any question on those?
No.
So for establishment of extension number 223 to the Henrietta Sewer District number 1, this is the one that was in front of us before, but we didn't have enough information to determine the charges. We had a discussion today with Roland and a couple others in terms of what's the best route to deal with the fact that there are 4 houses on Ward Hill that arguably could be in this district. I wasn't comfortable putting them in there until the main behind their house was run, and that the deal that we kind of made, because we put a lot of burdens on this developer in terms of costs for sewers and other things, was that there was currently an application to the state to waive the requirement for the secondary roads. The neighbors weren't keen on it either. They often refer to it as the landing strip. So if the state does waive that, that will obviously save the developer money, in which case he has agreed that he will use that to put in the sewer main behind those houses.
Okay.
So then the question is, do we wait and hold off on this, creating this extension? But then the problem is, you don't want the potential of, if any of these houses come online this year, then they wouldn't, before that happens, they wouldn't be paying sewer rent, which isn't fair to everybody else. So in the discussions, it was decided that the best route to do it is to create the district, and if and when those houses come online, we can do an out-of-district agreement and essentially put them under the same terms. So they would effectively be added to the extension, even if that's not how it works legally. But the results would be the same. So again, we would we would just add to the spreadsheet when divvying up the costs, we would add those 4 out-of-district users in those calculations. So basically what happens is we take the bond costs for the infrastructure, for the pump station and the force main, and we divide that up amongst all of the sewer extensions and property owners that are connected to that pump, force main. So
Okay.
that was decided the best way to do it. So we, unless someone has an objection, my plan was to move forward with creating the district. And then, like I said, if and when those other houses come online, we would add them to it.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a way to add 4 houses, but temporarily zero them out until stuff comes in. That's the other way we could potentially do it. But Don, I don't know if that's legal.
I think the Roland suggestion about adding them by out of district if they want in wasn't a bad suggestion.
Okay.
Then the other option is to wait. I'm not sure if there's a timing issue here. I know we talked about the taxation issue, but I think we decided that didn't ultimately represent an issue for us, right?
Well, the original cutoff date that I thought was the March 1st, that wasn't the case. It's coming up this summer as to when we have to have it done by. So
do we know when we might?
That New York State is going to have answered that question by then.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if we heard from the property owners whether they wanted it or not. I mean, that would be another good way of doing it. But you know what? The out of district isn't a bad idea either. So, given the timing, I think whatever the town is most comfortable with.
Okay. The reason, so that people have expressed interest if the pipe is there, the issue is that the cost to put that pipe in isn't cheap, but the main feed behind their house. So they might not be interested in paying, essentially 1/4 of that cost. But again, if it's being done as part of the infrastructure for this development, then they would be willing to pay for their lateral hookups. So that's kind of where it sits with those houses. Any other questions on that? So for number 6, as I was thinking about this last week, the school district is allowing us to, and they basically wrote a letter to us saying that they would allow us to use their parking at Good Shepherd for free on a, it's effectively on an as available basis, right? If it's not conflicting with something major they've got. And, in talking with this, with Don about some previous stuff, it seemed to me that since the school district is selling us the church for $1, And again, allowing the free that parking, that we ought to reciprocate by saying that if they've got any events that want to go in there, they would be free. Now that, just to be clear, we're not talking preemptive. It's on a, just like they'd be in line to sign up for the facility, just like anybody else in town, but that we would waive the charges for it. And again, do it as, my plan was to write the letter or something to the effect that as long as they are offering us free parking, we're going to offer them free rental of the space. So, but I didn't want to do that without talking to the town board before I wrote that letter, just because their letter regarding parking is not in the contract, the sales contract, because they didn't want to have a contractual obligation. To me, this would take the same form. It's a letter saying this is what we're doing, but it's not a contractual obligation. But, to me, it would be basically, as long as they're giving us free parking, we ought to give them free rent. But I didn't know how others felt.
Just like to see a copy of that letter.
Sure.
Yep, before we do it.
Is this something that they requested?
They did not request it.
Okay.
I'm requesting it.
Okay.
Because it just seems, again,
Well, the town and the school district, we share a lot of services together, so it does
Exactly.
make sense. I just wondered. Yeah.
no, they didn't ask for it. It just, like I said, I was just thinking about it the other day because I was doing something. It had to do with working on the stuff for the farmhouse. In terms of who is and isn't in there. One of the things that Don made clear is from a use of public facilities, if we're doing in these organizations, that there has to be a mutual benefit. And so the point is those organizations do stuff specifically for the town as well. So in this case, my thought is let's put that in a letter. Here's this mutual benefit. You're providing us parking, we're providing you free rent. So that's where it came up, as I was starting to work on the stuff for the farmhouse, because I know some of the organizations are very excited to potentially get in there. So that's kind of what brought it up.
That's great. And the school might want to go through the farmhouse too, has some of their stuff.
School can't actually go in the farm. I don't know what they could do in the
They
farmhouse.
can't do a tour? The kids couldn't go there and?
Oh, they could as part of, yes, as part of like a historic
Yeah.
site tour.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not in terms of use
Right.
of the facilities.
Exactly.
But, I could see, for instance, if there's a high school dance club, for instance, or something that, if they're having trouble, let's say the gym's in use in sports and they need I don't know what other dance facilities are there, but the stage, could they use the stage on there and, or even for performances, down the road. So I just see that there's, again, I'm thinking of it more from a student club basis that I can't, I don't know what the school itself would use it for, the district itself, but I'm thinking of it from any student organization through the school could use it.
There's a couple of small theater groups too. I know that, when they do their performances, they just only use the stage.
Right.
And they set bleachers up on the stage, so that could be something that might
Sure.
be a real nice space for them.
Great. Sustainability chapter to the town code. So, as you know, Color Henrietta Green came through, gave their presentation. So I started to draft a sustainability chapter that should be in your packet. Just taking an early crack at it. Take a, look at that, think about any changes you might want to see. And then at some point we would, call for a public hearing, similar to updating any, drafting any local law.
Okay.
So I tried to capture what was discussed. But, again, if there is any, if I've missed anything or you'd like it captured differently, feel free to offer suggestions, corrections. I don't know that I've sent it out to the Color Henrietta Green folks yet. I wanted to get it out to you guys. If you think it's okay to share, well, now it's shared because it's in our minutes, but to specifically email it out and get everybody, a bunch of people involved, let me know, but go ahead.
Have we looked at other towns that have already established one?
So I used as the template, there is another town, one of the P towns, Parrington,
Parrington, I
Penfield.
think.
Parrington, yeah.
I just was wondering if
Yep.
kind of on the same. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on that? So then, as you saw, the ethics board submitted the updated ethics code. We've got Bob Cook here, who is currently serving as the chairperson for the Board of Ethics. And I know there are a number of the ethics board members who are going to be participating online. So the idea of this is to get the feedback. As you saw, I sent mine out this afternoon. Few minor changes. I will want to bring up the one discussion item here. And that's has to do with the, hold on, I'm just going to log in so I can pull it up. That has to do with the future employment section, I think is the one area that I get what that was trying to accomplish, which had to do with, there's sort of the no lobbying kind of thing approach. But I also know that we have, for instance, two individuals who are doing that today, former building and fire code director and our former assessor. So, that's their area of expertise when they retire. Now, they're not specifically working in the town, but they are doing projects, some of whom those companies do business with in Henrietta. I get, Bob, in your response that would not apply retroactively, but I just also think going forward, I could see there's other people who would want to do that. And I guess the question is, what do you think is the issue there? And I realize I'm asking you to speak for the board, but I'm just, if you wouldn't mind stepping up, and I'd just like to at least have the conversation. So just to overview the process here, again, we want to get the feedback, incorporate any recommendations, changes, whatever from this town board. They would put it together, then it would come back and be put forth as a call for a public hearing. Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, sure. Just to address that
By the way, this is
specifically.
Bob Cook, chairman
Hello,
of
everyone. Yeah, I think pretty
Select-
much everyone knows me, but if you don't, here I am.
I was doing that for the
The
minutes.
What's that?
For the minutes.
For the minutes. Very good. That makes sense. So I think as the supervisor said, that section would not apply retroactively to anyone that has left the town's employ as of the effective date of the new law. But in addition to that, the language is intended, and I think has the effect of only applying to someone getting involved in a project for which they were directly involved in their capacity as a town employee or elected official. So for example, without getting the titles correct, the building inspector is involved in rejecting a building permit, leaves the town, goes to work somewhere else, and then gets involved in trying to overturn that building permit having been declined. That person wouldn't be prohibited from interacting with the town in general on issues related to building permits or anything that person had been involved in that was their expertise as an employee, only on specific things in which that person was directly involved while an employee.
So let me ask a question though, going back to the assessor. So the assessor basically had determined a value for every property in Henrietta. So going forward, if, the assessor now is hired to do a commercial appraisal for a property, would that, or would it only be if they were in front of the town on a certiorari action, they would be barred from doing any work on that certiorari action?
That's exactly right. They'd be barred from being involved in that certiorari action.
I might
Because-
want to take a look at the wording then to see if we can make that clear,
Sure,
because that wasn't the impression I got when I read it.
right. I think, tightening language up is always a reasonable thing to do.
Okay, no, that makes more sense if that's what you're prohibiting.
I'm happy to answer any other questions people might have. I would say editorially that when we were before you 2 years ago, Ken Breeze and I made a proposal with respect to this. There have been significant changes to the proposed legislation since then. So I think the intention, is to be much less punitive and much more collaborative in terms of making sure we get compliance as opposed to trying to put a hammer down on people. And I think the last time we looked at this, there were some really substantial penalties that could be assessed. Those largely have gone away. At this point, the Ethics Board would be operating, it still would have the same three functions, two of which are new, to oversee financial disclosure statements and to offer advisory opinions with respect to ethics complaints made by citizens, which are new, in addition to its current job, which is to offer advisory opinions to town elected officials or employees about ethical concerns that they may have. But what is different in this draft is that, again, the Ethics Board is advisory only, and ultimately any type of sanction would come from the town board itself. So the Ethics Board would simply advise, we can consider this to be an issue, and then it's really up to the elected leadership of the town to determine whether that's something to proceed with respect to or not.
But one of the differences in that regards, and we, as the board, the Ethics Board was discussing it, and I was participating in that meeting, felt that it was important was that the Ethics Board everything discussed there has to remain confidential, but the board itself could put forth a statement. Because, one of the things that you get into with ethics is that perception plays a huge factor in it. And if it's not perceived as being independent and, taking a fair look at things, then it's effectively ineffective, right? So we all felt strongly, even though it causes some potential angst, certainly for Don, is to have that ability in there. We felt it was important, and I'm going to use some specific examples from the past, right? So there was one time where I remember during my predecessor's time in office, people were saying, oh, look, he's committing an ethics violation because he had highway millings dropped off at his son's property. Well, if you really dig into that, we drop millings off at anybody who asks for it in town. So that was not an ethics violation. Now, if the supervisor says that, people poo-poo it because he's just defending himself. But if an independent ethics board issued that, someone brought the complaint and they looked into it and said, no, this is not an ethics violation, I think that's important for that statement to be out there. Now, like I said, there's some other things that were, in my opinion, some questionable behavior. And if the ethics board found that, I think that's important to say as well. But, we did, in talking with it, more agree that any sanction, if you will, or whatever could be done, should be done by the elected officials and not by the ethics board. So does that mean that the ethics board could find there's a violation that the town board committed and the town board does nothing on it? It does. But there, no matter how you set it up, there's always that potential because, again, you can't create something that creates an iron-bound wrap around the town board, since the town board at any time could repeal it, right? You can't create something that a future town board can't create. So the idea being that if it's brought out into the public in an official statement, you know, having been looked into, excuse me, that, sorry, I've got to take care of my laptop or desktop there. Anyway, sorry. If there's an official statement that brings it out in the public, it would hopefully, shall we say, encourage the town board to do what's right. But you can't force it. And in fact, there's, you know, it's not like there's really a whole lot that you're limited as to what you can do, because so for instance, the town board cannot vote off one of its members, for instance, if somebody was found to be really problematic. We don't have that authority. The voting public has that authority. So, you know, that's just kind of what we were looking at. I don't know how others feel about that, but we just felt from a transparency standpoint that it was important for the Board of Ethics to be able to release a written statement on its findings. I don't know what other people think.
No, I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense to be able to release a public statement, and that would be a tool that could be used to apply pressure for accountability, or to bring transparency if there is no ethics violation.
Right.
There's a lot of wording here, Bob. I may have some questions after I really read it.
Yeah,
I was
I'll
gonna say-
very
contact you.
true.
Hey, anytime.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
ask
very
any
true.
questions you want.
I may
now
have some
or
more
later.
questions myself.
Yep. And, you know, the whole ethics board has been working very hard on this. A lot of good discussions. You know, a lot of good thought into how to make this work. You know, as you saw, like I said, we still got some cleanup, and especially because as we've transitioned. So for one of the things, we decided to not go to a full financial disclosure because the ones from the state are really burdensome. And when it really gets down to, we don't care about the financials as much as the conflicts of interest, the things that could create potential ethics violations. So we changed the name to more ethics disclosure, I think is what we used.
I think that's what you were recommending, yeah.
I think that came from Don too.
Okay.
But the point is, so we're going to clean that language up. Is that correct, Don? Was that the right term? You're muted if you're answering.
I just said yes, that was suggested to come up with ethics disclosure form.
Right. So like I said, just some language cleanup and stuff like that. We'll go through it. But I just wanted to, like I said, make sure you guys, if you had any specific questions, realize that not everybody probably has had the chance to read it all yet. But just wanted you to, again, have Bob here to answer any questions and bring up feedback from this board.
Well, I have to say, I really appreciate the work that you in particular, Bob, have done on this, and also the board. I think that having a really strong ethics board is something that's valuable and leads us towards more transparent government, and something that can and should be sustainable for a long time into the future.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the ethics board has worked very hard on this. And I think particularly trying to take into account the feedback from the board from 2 years ago to try to make this something that's really workable for a town like Henrietta, but that does provide that additional transparency and accountability that's so important, I think, nowadays. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks for your work on this, Ben.
Thanks. Anybody from the ethics board online wish to add anything?
Hold on just a minute. I see Naomi on here. Let me
Yeah,
unmute her
if
just
you're
in
not able to speak, raise your hand and Becky can enable you.
It's a workshop, so it's not set up that way, unfortunately.
I guess then you type in your comment and Becky will read it.
Yeah, I hit unmute for Naomi, but she's not. Oh, there she
Hi,
is.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm unmuted. No, I don't know that I have much more to add. I think I appreciate Steve's suggestions, and I think it would be great if the board, the town board, got a chance to really read it over and make sure that the Board of Ethics is aware of any concerns you have, so that when we do our revision, we can take that all into consideration and come up with a final product that works for everybody.
Great.
Thanks,
Sounds good.
Naomi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, Craig, if you want to give a quick update on the Town Center access road. For those who don't know Town Center Plaza, it's what most people think of as Suburban Plaza.
Yep, so we talked about Suburban Plaza and the deterioration of the road. We actually got some favorable response back from the owner, who went out even last week, I believe it was, and filled potholes in. That was a temporary fix. We are waiting for what would be like an overlay, a full smooth coat over the entire road. That is the next step. He is waiting for a schedule back from his contractor, hopefully for May. When they can schedule that, they'll let us know, and we'll hold them to top coating that entire road section and smoothing it all out. So I informed him that if it fell apart again, that the board would take a look at that, and still, if they require them to then mill it up and repave it, it'd be down the road. But if their contractor stated that that would hold, then we would go along with at least that recommendation for now. So that's the progress at this point. Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Craig. That road is really beat up. It does need help.
I did drive it again over the weekend, and it seems to be holding up at least the potholes. It was a hot mix, a good hot mix material that seemed to go in there at the moment. The entrance is now another story. I didn't really get into the entrance because the complaints came in, but when I went into the entrance, I noticed that that was pretty beat up. But that's really, I think, between them and the state DOT. So it's being the state road. So, but we'll work on the private drive. All right.
Well, the residents will be happy about it. Hopefully it
And
holds
so
up.
will the neighboring businesses who utilize that pretty regularly.
Mhm.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. We've got the revised building and fire prevention fee schedule. I don't remember off the top of my head what we were adding. Do you know, Kevin?
Yeah, this was
Solar.
the solar changes we did last March or
Oh, that's right.
2020. They just inadvertently did not get put into the fee schedule that was posted on the E code 360.
Gotcha. Okay.
Unless you want to revert back and charge Charlie the large project surcharge, which I'm fine with, and Linda is too, I'm sure.
Yeah, he might cry.
Yeah.
Okay, any questions on that?
No.
11, this is something we go through every year. Basically authorizes me to sign the memorandum of understanding for the DPW temporary hours. I don't remember, I think we were looking to try to put something in the union contract, so we don't have to go through this every year. It's basically, again, it's what allows them to do the 4 9s and 4 instead of 5 8s. 9-hour day, 4 9-hour days and 1 4-hour day as opposed to 5 8-hour days. It takes advantage of, getting first in line at the asphalt plants. Definitely helps us get through quicker. And typically when you're in there working on the road paving, working on it all day, cranking it out is definitely beneficial. So it's better utilization of the resources and the individuals. And then it also allows the employees to get out early on a Friday, which they all like. So it's good for the town, good for the employees. Any questions? So as I believe we mentioned previously, well, actually, is this change order 2? I don't know if this is the same one. Chris, are you on? Could you talk about change order number 2?
Hey, yes, Chris Martin, Director of Engineering and Planning. So this is the final change order. It's called an over and under. So if you remember, the first one was for $75,000, and that was to tack on the sanitary sewer on Lehigh Station Road. So that work actually came in at a little bit more than that, at $100,000, which we figured it might, but at that time the town only wanted to spend $75,000. However, we didn't use some of the other items on the sanitary sewer and the lateral contract, the original budget. We were able to save some money there by not doing as many inline repairs. But we also did a couple extra laterals. So as it all balances out, when you look at all the different quantities, we're up just about $2,500. Any questions at all?
Nope.
No?
Thanks.
Thank you.
I remember there was a balance. I just couldn't remember what it ended up with. So very much appreciate you filling us in.
Yep. My pleasure.
Chuck, you had items you wanted to declare surplus?
Yeah, it's the stuff we normally get rid of at the spring auction in Palmyra. So there were 3 items. We do have some pickup trucks we'd like to send, but due to COVID and kind of keeping people separate in separate vehicles, we have to hang on to those for a little bit longer. But these 3 items can go and get off the books.
Is there like one of those auctions in the fall?
Yeah, there's we got Monroe County has one in October, and then Palmyra hosts one in the spring of the year. So hopefully, if things turn around and we get some of our new vehicles in, we can consign some of that stuff to the fall auction.
Great. Any questions? Thank you. It's time to recognize the 2021 Youth Hall of Fame recipients. I was originally going to see if, as liaison of the school board, whether you wanted to read it. Then I remembered that your son's on there, so I'm assuming you are going to abstain. So, like I said, we've got that. It'll be in the normal place in the resolutions, but what we'll do is at the meeting, we'll pull it ahead of the public hearing so that any parents and children who are either present or online don't have to sit through the public hearing.
Okay.
Any questions on that? And I did get a thank you, Anita, for sending the phonetic spelling. So hopefully I won't butcher the names so much. Then we have 4 donations for the library. Adrian, I don't know if you'd like to talk about any of them in particular.
Not really. They're very generous. We've just had a lot of spontaneous donations lately. I will say that David McNitt is a library board member. So he was feeling very inspired to donate to help support kids learning because of the weirdness of the partially remote year. So that's what we're devoting that to.
Great.
Great.
It's great that we have so many people interested in helping out.
I agree.
Linda, personnel items?
Hi, we have one new hire. Unfortunately, we don't have any more seasonal employees yet. Hopefully we'll be getting some of those soon. And then we have a few changes with, someone let somebody retire, and I don't know why that happened, but, so then we have some changes based on that.
Okay. Chuck, it sounds like Linda's turned down your retirement, so I guess you're hanging out for a little while longer.
Yeah, she's been a little biased in that.
Yeah. And so then Lisa, this is your second meeting for this month for the bills
Yes.
payable?
Yep.
Anything under old business? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion that we approve the preceding town board workshop minutes from April 12th, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilmember Barley,
Aye.
Councilmember Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Safranik,
Aye.
Councilmember Bolsner,
Aye.
Supervisor Schultz.
Aye. Any other discussion before we move to executive session? So it'll be matters relating to employment of a particular person. My plan would be to adjourn straight from executive session. There's not going to be an actual decision made, but we're trying to get some guidance for a future decision. And so anything else before we move? Sir. And I move that we move to executive session, and we'll adjourn straight from executive session.
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, meeting is moved to executive session, and this ends our broadcast for the evening. Thank you.